Uh, I have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. Sourav Dutta, Chief Technology Officer at UCO Bank, to deliver a brief tech talk for 10 minutes on reimagining banking, harnessing technology and innovation for a future-ready financial ecosystem. Over to you, sir.
A very good morning to you all, dignitaries on the dais. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. I was associated with IBEX since I am associated with IBEX in the last 3 years now. Last year I was the honorary chairman. So in line with this today's topic, I'm just going to talk briefly on the various technologies that are going to come in the near future and how, as bankers, we're going to take it forward. Because of the positive time, I've breeze through a lot of these quickly. I had broken down my talk into 4 different areas: the IT landscape, current landscape in the banks, the new technology implications, the enterprise architecture, which is very much of importance, and then looking forward. So I'll just quickly go to the IT landscape of the banks currently in India. So what we see is that the vision slash the enterprise architecture is not well defined. From an enterprise architecture, what we mean is that how the systems, so you have the core banking as the central system, and then you have the ancillary systems associated with that. So there is no standard as to how the enterprise architecture of the banks are defined. So what you see across the India, there are various implementations. For example, core banking, you have Finacle, right? So Finacle also has got various versions of it, and each implementation of Finacle is different in each bank. That's just an example, right? So you have other core banking systems in India as well. But just an example, that there is no standardizations. Also, when you migrate from one version to another, what is usually done is that they take lock, stock, and barrel into the next version. There is no cleaning up. So for example, some of the customizations, in fact, huge customizations which are done, they are taken lock, stock, and barrel into the next version as well. So what you're creating is, again, garbage in, garbage out. So that has to be checked. So we need to have an overall, from a top management perspective, a view of the enterprise architecture. Unless we have an enterprise architecture, things will not be in control. The second aspect that I want to talk about is the ad hoc model, or the vendor-driven approach, right? So wherever something comes in, some kind of a regulatory guideline, advisory, master direction, master circular, so things are taken into knee-jerk action, right? So suddenly, banks are trying to comply to that regulatory requirement, whether it's from a government perspective or from the regulator itself. So everybody is trying to comply to that, and then there are various ad hoc models which come in. There's no standard model, right? So how you do it in different banks is different. I don't want to delve into that because I'm running out of time. And most of them are vendor-driven. So that is also something that the bank has to recognize, that vendors are pushing something for their, so if there is something, for example, at the lower level, we have to get this done, so get it done, no matter how. So there is no overall overarching umbrella from an enterprise architecture vision perspective. This is also very common. You have a spaghetti architecture across all over the place. You have various plugs and fixes coming in from various systems, where you have LOS, or when you have a cash management system, or anything, treasury. It's all spaghetti. It's not a central kind of an architecture that you see. What we are seeing now is that this topic of less and no documentation is going down, because the regulator is also recognized, and they are pushing now. If you look at the regulator, they are pushing now for documentation. Systems are more or less in place, so now they are looking more from a compliance perspective. They're looking into documentation. So documentation is very important because it should not be person dependent. Most of the banks in India are driven by the vendors. So there has been a kind of a person dependent or a vendor dependency comes in. So if you have a documentation, that will alleviate these problems, and the regulator has recognized now, and they're forcing the banks to comply. Also, there's no standard guidelines for the regulator in how the systems, the IT systems of a bank should work. So that is also one of the pain areas, which again, the regulator is going to take it up in couple of they have their standing committees and other top-level think tanks. So this is one of the big problems from a complex compliance landscape each and every bank has to kind of comply to. Let's look at the new age enterprise architecture for banking. So you have frameworks. So these are standard frameworks that are there. So you have DevOps frameworks, you have BIAN, the Banking Industry Architecture Network, you have the Agile Network, TOGAF, etc. On top of that, you have the principles. So basic, these are standard principles, very common. Minimum viable architecture. You should have the minimum thing which will make it work. What we usually tend to do is that we try to over-architect. We try to bring in all the features in, for example, if you want to design an integrated treasury management system, we try to bring in all the features, even if you're not using it. Then that kills the whole thing. So you should have a minimum viable architecture which is suitable for that particular bank. And then you have the drivers. Of course, the drivers are the business-centric thing, customer-oriented, fintech-friendly, and data-driven. So how the future evolution of software, I'm talking about software perspective, how the future evolution would look like. It is an AI-first era. So we are talking about AI, but what is AI? A brief definition of AI is that the capability of the machines to mimic the human intelligence. Okay, so very simple. So think about that, where are we now? From an AI perspective, there are many things. Intelligence is a big thing. So for intelligence, currently where we are, we have got only 3 pillars. First is the natural language processing, what we are doing, NLP. Second is vision. And the third is reasoning. We are very less at the reasoning point, but we are going there. So only three pillars of intelligence we are touching. Natural language processing, image processing, and the reasoning, the AGI, augmented general reasoning. That's what it's called. So we'll see that this is going to evolve. And we have already seen the success of co-pilot-driven workflows, how it's going to help the bank improve the efficiency. Then you have the composable platforms, which will be plug-and-play kind of stuff in the future. You don't have to run around for vendors for various APIs. Of course, the data is at the core. So whenever you train a particular AI model, you require data. Now, that's the problem. You cannot give your production data, right? So then how you train the model? That's again a chicken and egg problem. If you can't give your production data for the AI to train, then how do you do it? So there the biasing comes in because you're training on some other data, then you're trying to implement in the bank, whole thing goes for a toss, right? So there is always this kind of a problem that we have to address. How do we take the data? Then again, beyond subscription models, we have to look beyond that. How to go forward, and the SaaS, like Nadella had said, that there will going to be end of the software as a service. All will be like agent driven. So that is the concept of beyond the SaaS. Then of course, the AI and cloud synergy is going to happen. That is already happening. You're seeing even GPU as a service coming up. Some of the technologies to look out for is, of course, quantum computing. Quantum computing is an area of concern for the bankers because from an encryption perspective, things can be broken down very quickly with the quantum computing coming in. And you have something known as the quantum safe encryption coming up for the banks. So even now, people are trying to implement quantum safe encryption for various methods of securing data. From an AI perspective, again, you have the various pillars that you have, how you're targeting the various, it has been talked before, the middle one that you're seeing. And the third one is that you have the AI models for hacking into the systems. It's very, very easy now. All the codes are available on GitHubs of the world. So you can use that to break into systems, and you don't have to be a technologist to do that. Also, we'll be seeing self-sustained data centers with near zero carbon footprint. That is the aim. The data center is just one of the biggest areas of concern now. New technology that we're going to see is that fully homomorphic encryption. What does it mean? It means that if you have a data, a PII data, and you have to encrypt that. Now, if you want to use that data for any analysis, you have to decrypt it, because unless you know what the encryption is, you cannot work on that data. How will your analysis work unless you decrypt it? So fully homomorphic encryption means that you can work on an encrypted data, right? So that is the next level of using data. So if you will be anonymizing the data using encryption, and that will be in the hardware on the real time, on the fly, and then you can use it for doing it. It's being used in medical industry. It's being used in banking now, very little, but it's going to come. In banking, you're already having the redaction thing, which RBI has already said, redaction, TDE, transfer, the encryption, right? Also, we'll be seeing the rise of the RISC-V processors. What you're using is a very old technology from Intel, right? So Intel, the processors from Intel have been designed in 1984. We're still using it. Unbelievable, right? We're using Windows. It's got an N number of problems. All the malwares, ransomwares are 99.9% from Windows, right? We are still using it. Okay, so you have the RISC-V processors. RISC has been designed way back. It's also a new, not a new technology. It's also old technologies from 1972s. The RISC has come out from IBM. So it's called reduced instruction set computers, and most of the bankers use it for their databases, right? Because that gives you the maximum performance. The concept is very simple. RISC is that every clock cycle gives you an output. In CISC, every multiple clock cycle will give you one output. So that's the difference. Now, Intel has been doing it, and they're also now changing it. AMD is also changing it. You'll see the rise of RISC-V processors coming in sharp very quickly. This will be completely open source. And then you have GenAI. So GenAI will be used for threat casting and also for soft biometrics. That's also something which is coming up in the next future, right? So I'll skip this, the AI framework. This is what I was supposed to talk about. Let's talk briefly on the AI, the cons of AI. Everybody has talked about the pros of AI. Let me talk a bit about the cons of the AI. So the cons of AI is that it lacks the explainability. What does it mean? That if you come out with an answer, how do you trace back? What is the traceability to the source? What is the data lineage, right? So those things you are unable to explain using AI. Why you cannot do it? Because it uses a technology called neural networks, right? And the neural networks, there are n types of neural networks. So what most common neural networks which is used is SVN, the server-side network, and the CNN, convoluted neural networks. So all those things are used to derive a particular reasoning. Neural networks are very simple. It is an optimization problem. It comes to a particular conclusion, right? So that is how it works. That is how AI works. So the lack of explainability, and there is a bias risk which I always talked about. The bias is always there. Security and data privacy concerns, because you do not know what data is going in. For example, if you most of what happened when ChatGPT came, most of the bankers, they started uploading their memorandums into ChatGPT, right? 50 pages document, and then summarize that in 1 page. Okay, so all your data goes out. So now RBI and the DFS has said that no ChatGPT, no DeepSeek, right, in the banks. Why? Because all the data is already out. All right, the next area of concern is the high implementation cost and complexity. You are using GPUs, right, which NVIDIA wanted to emphasize more. But now with DeepSeek coming in, they have optimized it much so that the GPU complexity is also coming down. Also complexity in terms of human scaling. Regulatory and ethical challenges. Okay, and then job displacement and skill gap, the Prime Minister also talked about it. But again, it is reskilling. It is not job displacement, but it is going to be reskilling of your own skills. So that is what PM also talked in France for the AI summit. And of course, there are skill gaps. I'll skip this, the LLM, okay. Like I always says, banks will be a technology company with a banking license in the future, right? So that's I was always selling that, and then you have various other things in banking, private data center. I think I'll skip your paucity of time. I'll be around, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take it forward, right? Dave is looking at me very anxiously, right? So I can talk about this. It's a short topic, but I could have gone on for more than 1 hour, right? All right. Thank you.
Once again, my apologies, sir. I wish we had more time to give to all the speakers, but we run a very, very watertight program today. Ladies and gentlemen, so that was a good, insightful session by Dr. Sourav Dutta.